Hey, fantastic. We are here. We're ready.
Very good.
Another
Very good.
episode. What episode is this now? Number 30 30 something, I think. I'm at like 30 something for this show. Jesus. I lose track. 30 something for this show, 160 something if we
32.
count the last if we count the before if we count after the reboot. Um so we have a special guest with us this week, everybody. I usually great at introducing people, but I don't know how to introduce you to our audience. So how about you take it upon yourself to introduce the audience, let them become acquainted with you on the show this week, sir?
Sure. I'm known as Stealth40k on the internet. I'm pretty active on Twitter. I guest on a variety of podcasts. Not This is the first in 2023. I'm known for Nintendo news and JRPG news. That's kind of my bread and butter content on Twitter.
A little bit of a JRPG fan, one might say.
Just a little bit.
Just a
Tiny bit. Tiny bit. Don't think I don't be seeing those posts about Octopath Traveler too. We're gonna talk about that too. Don't you worry. We gonna get there. All right. So our show usually starts out with a little bit about each of us, about what we've been playing this week. Um, I guess I'll start because I've been busy with Persona 5 Royal for my channel, and that's been taking up a decent amount of my time. And I'm in a weird spot with this game because
Mhm.
if I was to review it, it wouldn't be as simple as saying it's worth playing. It would be like, this game is worth playing only if you do most of the content. I think that's a weird thing to say, right? Like, if you do all the confidants and stuff, the game is fantastic. If you don't, I don't think the game holds up as well. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I just, it doesn't hold up well for me. It just doesn't. The game feels empty, but when you play it the way I've been playing it, the game is just fantastic. You never really feel like you're not doing something. I think that's the way the game was intended to be played. So it's a weird thing for me where people are like, is this game worth playing? I'm like, how much do you want to play it? How many hours do you want to invest? Do you want to invest the 80, 90 hours just to beat it? Or do you want to invest 130, 140 hours to see everything in it? It's all about what you want to do. I love it. I'm digging it. I think that's just a weird place for me to be where like my recommendation is boiled down to how much gameplay do you really want? Cause I've played the original one without like following
Uh-huh.
a guide or something, and I don't think the game held up nearly as well.
Huh. I'm guessing it's a lot about the characters that they don't go nearly as in depth without you doing the confidant
No,
stuff,
they don't.
so
They
the rest
don't.
feels shallow in comparison.
They really don't. Entire character story arcs just get left out
Mm-hmm.
unless you do the confidants.
Mm.
Ryuji's and Yusuke's, those three in particular, they get done dirty by the story. Like
Mhm.
if you just play the storyline, they lose so much. There's so much of their character you don't get to learn about. But when you do their confidant, suddenly you get a lot more understanding of their character.
Mhm.
Like it
So a lot of what happens in the story usually regularly falls flat, or it's just not special to you because you don't notice the small things. But when you've done it, then hmm, yeah, definitely more in there.
yeah, there's a lot more character development. I don't really think the story does them all justice equally.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some characters that I'm just like, I wish I didn't have to engage with you, but here we are engaging with each other. I'm looking at you, Miss Reporter, known as Oya. I don't care. I look. Here's the thing. I don't hate any character. I don't. I don't hate them. I really don't. I don't hate any character. In fact, by the end of their confidants, I sympathize or at least empathize with them a little bit. I'm like, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You're like a terrible person, but your situation sucks. I get it. Like I'm willing to meet you halfway on that one. But
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're a trash heap of a human being, but I would never ask for your situation on anybody. But oh yeah, she
Mhm.
doesn't endear herself to me very quickly. By claiming a minor as her boyfriend to get out of doing a job with her, getting out to get out of doing a job for her boss. Yeah, doesn't really endear me to her cause. Real trash heap of a human being. But like I said, I don't hate any character. I haven't really hated a single character, confidant wise. Like I either like them or I walk away from them going, okay, yeah, that sucks, but maybe you're not a terrible person after all. There might be hope for you. You might be salvageable. Maybe we can make a better person out of you yet. And that's been my week. I haven't really been able to play much of anything else outside of like my occasional spats with Chrono Trigger and grinding my characters for all their skills. But other than that, I got nothing else to talk about.
I mean, Chrono Trigger is a good time anyway.
Oh, so good. So good. All right, I can't wait any longer. Still, tell me about Fire Emblem Engage.
Yeah, that's the only game I've played since it came out. Even before that, like I was taking a little bit of a break just because it's hard to play back to back big RPGs. So before one comes out, I take a little break just so I'm not burned out. Like I'm not burned out right away. Yeah, I'm about 12 hours in, I would say. I don't even know how far I am or really how far I am in the story. But yeah, I mean, I've really just been enjoying it. It just reminds me of like handheld or just really the Fire Emblem games before Three Houses. It's just not complicated and it's not overwhelming and it's just like a good time. That's just the best way I can explain it. Visually it looks amazing. Story and characters aren't great, but nothing like super offensive. I just tweeted about that. They're okay. They're average. It's not bad, but because I mean the focus is really on like the tactical battles, and the game is pretty difficult actually. I would say. You actually start with like 3 difficulty levels: normal, hard, and maddening. And for whatever reason, I always start on maddening. And I got to like chapter 5, and maybe there's a way to beat the boss somehow, but like
you haven't found it yet.
I literally spent like 2 hours just trying over and over. And at that point, the game just wasn't very fun on maddening. And usually, Fire Emblem games will have like a new game plus. So, and that's where you can carry over stats and things like that. So that's really what maddening is for normally. So I had to lower the difficulty. And, the thing about Fire Emblem is, you can't, in many RPGs now, you can just change the difficulty whatever you want and go back and forth, up and down. With Fire Emblem, you can only go down. So you can't go back up in the same playthrough. Which is interesting. So if I wanted to go back up to maddening, I couldn't at this point. So it's definitely like a one-time decision. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've been playing, and probably all I'm going to be playing in January. I would say.
Have you, prior to this one, you mentioned Three Houses. So yeah. I know you obviously have played Three Houses. Yeah. What other Fire Emblem games had you played prior to Three Houses, or had you played any aside from? I know Three Houses brought Fire Emblem to like the forefront for a lot of people. Yeah. That really introduced or reintroduced Fire Emblem to people.
I'm guessing since you compared it to the handhelds, you either played Awakening or what was the other one?
7. It would be Fire Emblem 7 for GPA. I'd imagine out of that or Blazing Stones.
There were 2 titles on the 3DS, weren't there? On the DS, 3DS.
There were 3 Fire Emblem games on the 3DS.
Oh, there was. Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, I mean, I've pretty much started from the beginning. Like, obviously we've all had to play fan translations of the games that were never localized. Yeah. So I've had to do that, but I've played all of them.
Oh wow.
Damn. Like I was a kid reading in Nintendo Power. They always would have like an overseas or international section about games in Japan, and they would write about Fire Emblem. And I just hoped one day somehow would get to a point where like Nintendo thought it was a big enough deal to really respect the series worldwide, and I think we're at that point. It just took a long time to get there. But yeah, I mean, I've pretty much played them all. You know, my favorites being, you know, Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn,
Okay.
Fates, Awakening. You know, I've
Yeah,
said this
Fate's
before.
a
There
good
hasn't
one.
been a Fire Emblem that I've met that I haven't liked, in some
Oh,
way. So like, I'm just a fan of the series.
Damn. Okay.
cool.
Okay. I vibe it. I vibe it. Hell yeah. You know, you brought up Nintendo Power. Uh, I know you have a fairly decent collection of Nintendo Power magazines. I've seen you mention it on Twitter, and when I
Yeah.
saw a lot of them, I'm like, bro, I had that one, and when I when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I kept a few of them. Like I still have one that I kept specifically because it had all the Johnny locations for Golden Sun 1. I kept it for that one reason because I was so ass at remembering where they all were.
Yeah, I have a I haven't been collecting as much, but you know, I do collect video game magazines. So I do have a complete set of Nintendo Power issue 1 to I think 285 was the last issue, I think.
Nice.
Very
nice.
nice.
You know, like Game Informer, EGM, you know, just because I have a lot of nostalgia for like how we absorbed information and news back in the day. It was all game magazines.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
especially
didn't have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I just enjoy what people thought and what the predictions were, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and seeing, you know, if anything came true. I really enjoy that.
yeah, I would.
True, I can understand that. It's same for me, but with the German magazines that we had back then in the early 90s, those are still stored away. Not all of them in pristine condition, but pretty good.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, see, it's bases are loaded.
Mhm.
You're up.
Yeah, so well, rather fitting. I've during the week I haven't been playing much, but on Friday I started out with a relatively new, well, quote unquote JRPG, because it's not quite J in terms of who made it.
Okay. All right.
Can you guess?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Is it an indie game?
Um, you could say that, yeah.
Then
A
I would
small
say Chain
team.
Echo. I would say Chain
Yep.
Echoes then. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. Called it. Damn.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm around 9 hours in, and certainly has the very start is a nice homage to a certain other game already mentioned, Chrono Trigger. The start sequence kind of tricks you by making an homage to that, and then it throws you into a completely different story. But then again, after that prologue is done, it gives you a sort of like that celebration mini game selection there, which is nice as a homage as well. It's different, but you can definitely notice what they were aiming at. And the so far the battle system for it, I like it. I hope it stays good until the end. As has any of you played it?
I have. Yeah, I'm in the middle of it.
I
Okay.
have not played it.
Mm-hmm. As one of the special things in it is you have to manage your overdrive bar. It's essentially a bar that fills up, or the marker goes higher with your usual attacks. But some of your attacks make it go lower, and you have a certain area where it's green, which is your optimal area because you take less damage and deal more damage in that area. But if you let it go into the red area, it's called overheat, and you take significantly more damage at that point.
Huh.
So you have to manage which skills you use. If you switch your character to defend at some point, because that lowers the bar, or you use your special what was it called? The Ultimate Skill, I think it was called.
I forget now.
Yeah.
I put it on the back burner.
Or the Overdrive skill or whatever. It's a special. Yeah, and because it's a bar that fills up the more damage you do, and once it's filled up, you can activate it. It's a very strong attack usually, or a healing spell for each of the characters. It's different, and that lowers your overdrive bar significantly. So you have to manage that in each battle, and especially in boss fights.
Damn.
And yeah, that makes it interesting so far, and it's gonna be interesting how it continues. At the start, you switch characters quite often, but by now I'm at the point where that doesn't happen so much anymore, because you have your party of, for me, it's 6 members at the moment. I'm guessing there's gonna be more, at least 2 more, to fill up the party selection, because you can switch out characters during battle in case one of them gets staggered, for example, which makes management of the party in battles interesting, and I hope it stays interesting in later. So that's looking forward to that. And yeah, the achievements aren't always directly related to the game, because one I got today was Hitchcock was right. Because there's always in the field there's always birds sitting around, and when you get close to them, they fly away.
Oh no!
And once you disturb 60 of them, that achievement pops up.
Oh.
Luckily, so far, not much more happened.
Oh no! My dad made me watch that movie when I was growing up. That movie gave me straight up nightmares for like a week, dude. Like, birds terrified the shit out of me, and I don't know why, because it's such an it's such a ridiculous premise. But that movie like ruined me for like years of my life. I would go walk outside and see birds on a tree and just be like, oh well. This might be
ridiculous, but it's no birdemic.
Yeah, fair. So I initially had this next segment as, what do we want to play most this year? Right, what's coming out this year that we know of that we want to play most? But then I also had a segment called Why Isn't This Out Yet? And I feel like I can just kind of combine them both, because they both kind of hit the same point for me. So I'll just kind of combine them both and say that one game I hope comes out this year, or that we at least get more information on, is Dragon Warrior 3. The HD remake. Like, they dropped one trailer for that game. One trailer, and said nothing about it. They just said, hey guys, Dragon Quest 3, here it is. We're working on it. And then proceeded to say nothing to us. And that's not cool. Dragon Warrior 3 is an amazing game. I don't know why they would just drop that one trailer and proceed to say nothing.
Yeah, I think they did that just because Dragon Quest Treasures was coming out first. I think that's the only reason. You know, I suspect we'll see that game in a Nintendo Direct. I think it's pretty as close to a lock as a game can be. It's going to show up. Maybe the one in February that usually happens, maybe the one in June, but I do think we see it this year.
Because like it's been, how long has it been since that? It's been a while since that trailer. That trailer was over like a year or two, right?
I think it was in 21 that they showed that.
I can't. Yeah, they had like a 35th anniversary Dragon Quest event, I think, and they announced it there. But I forget when that was exactly. It was at least a year ago.
I'm assuming you probably know just how big of a deal Dragon Quest is in Japan, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard stories about Dragon Quest in Japan.
I mean, the series is big in Japan, but Dragon Quest 3 is particularly big in Japan. The original game was, for a time, I think, the best-selling game ever in Japan. The SNES the SNES enhanced port sold over 1 million copies. It sold well on the Game Boy on the Game Boy Color. So yeah, it's a pretty big game. It's gonna be big. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Dragon Quest Treasures has sold over 300,000 copies in Japan, including digital. And that was just a side game. So, Dragon Quest 3 it's gonna do pretty good.
Please come out.
Yeah.
I need to
No surprise they're choosing that game to remake first.
Yeah, cause it would be Dragon Warrior 3. That would have to. That would be the best option. Cause I don't really Dragon Warrior 3. If you really think about it, like Dragon Warrior 2 was good, but that was like the first time they really experimented having parties that wasn't just like your main character. And Dragon Quest 2 was a busted video game for letting you have multiple characters. If you've ever played it, it really was a busted video game because the game was not entirely balanced around the player having access to like those characters and like being able to have all those abilities at their disposal. So it made the game almost too easy. Whereas like Dragon Warrior 1, it's one guy. It's one guy on a quest to murder a demon lord. And the game is balanced around that one guy on a quest to murder a demon lord. I think the only other thing I can think of that got delayed by like a month is Atelier Ryza. I'm not surprised it got delayed because it was coming out next to like Octopath, wasn't it? Was it?
It was the same day.
Oh, ooh.
And they moved it to the same day as Resident Evil 4 Remake, which isn't great either, but it's probably better than launching the same day as a bigger JRPG.
Definitely.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because that's the thing. I don't know if you can really consider that competing though, right? Like, yeah, launching next to Octopath, that's competing, right? Like you're directly competing. Yeah.
I mean, technically all games compete. It's all money that, is limited. But in terms of like attention of a certain audience, the JRPG audience is going to be focused on Octopath Traveler. And that's what's going to be talked about. So it's not great, but it's better. It's better than it was.
So I know you've been tweeting a lot about stuff about Octopath Traveler 2, and I was wanting to kind of get your feelings on what you think about what you've seen so far compared to like the first one, because I know the first one had a pretty mixed response depending on who you talk to and who played it. Me personally, I kind of felt like basically all the characters' stories worked. Like I didn't really hate any of them. I don't think they all hit as strongly, but I think they all worked. So I'm really kind of curious to know like how you feel about the new one, especially with like them taking such varying different arts, such varying different locations now. Like we're not just dealing with like a medieval theme anymore. We're dealing with like the Wild West. We're dealing with like a detective. We have this large swath of characters now versus
Octopath Alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my number one most anticipated game this year is Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda, which I think is the case for most people. But number two is definitely Octopath Traveler for me. I really love the first game. It's like there are some series like are just for you, like they just hit with you the right way. And as a classic RPG fan, like Octopath was that for me. Like the visuals and the music and the stories and the characters, I just really loved it. The sequel is just like, let's take everything that really worked in the first game, so like the visuals and like the gameplay is nearly identical. But let's like enhance like the stories. Let's add like really meaningful side quests. So like I'm really looking forward to it. Like once that game comes out, like no other game matters to me for a while.
Is that regardless of whether or not you finish Fire Emblem before then?
I mean, Octopath Traveler is at the end of February, so and I don't think Fire Emblem is that big. I think I'll be close to finishing it if not finished by then.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't. CD, is there anything you're looking forward to in this coming year that has your attention as far as
Well, certainly one thing, but that hasn't been announced yet for a Western release, which is coming out, I think, next month in Japan, namely Disgaea 7.
ah
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think NIS is a little behind, just because of all the
Mhm.
Falcom games they're doing. So like
Yeah.
games they developed even like a year or two ago, they're now localizing now. So
Mhm.
I just think they're a little behind. I thought it was I thought it was a really bad move where it was announced in Japan, but it wasn't announced for with the West at the same time because that's when
Yeah.
like interest is highest. I would have liked to have seen that. Like, I can't imagine they're
Mhm.
not going to localize it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. But yeah, I've been following that one too, and it looks really good.
Mhm.
hopefully
Yeah,
they
apparently I've heard from the demo that they improved things in a big way, especially in terms of performance and such. Which, yeah, 6 had a bit of an issue with.
yeah did was 6 better on other platforms than I assume 6 ran better
Uh,
on other platforms, right? Like I'm sure it wasn't.
on PS4, it was apparently still pretty bad. On PC, it's okay, but naturally, at least on my configuration, I don't know how it's on others, but 6 definitely has problems in terms of performance.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. I just wouldn't have expected the 3D sprites. I mean I'm pretty sure it's more than just them making the transition to 3D. That couldn't have been easy
Mm-hmm.
to begin with. I mean, you
Yeah.
could only really go hand drawn for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Yeah, my guess is they didn't have time to optimize because 2019 they had their financial issue problem, and then that probably affected it that they couldn't wait too long with releasing that.
yeah, they had to get that shit out the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've heard from Saul that post game stuff was apparently also not great. So that's what leads me to the conclusion that yeah, they probably just didn't have the time to optimize anymore.
Damn.
And apparently 7 is much better in that regard
Well,
from
I
the
mean,
demo.
aside from Disgaea 7, uh oh,
Hmm.
aside from Disgaea 7, I would certainly hope I don't know, man. I just want to see Disgaea 3 eventually get like a port or something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see Disgaea
Yeah, that would be nice. That's true.
bare minimum Disgaea 3. I want to see a port. Like
Mm-hmm.
like we got Disgaea 1, we got Disgaea 4, we got Disgaea 5. Fantastic,
Yeah,
great.
we definitely need 2 and 3.
Yeah, like I want 2 and 3. Bear, like at least give me 3. Give me Mao, man.
Mm-hmm.
Give
Yep.
me my turbo gamer nerd character.
I
Like
mean, 2 is on PC at least.
yeah,
Yes.
but 3 is still the only one
Yeah.
locked to the PS3.
And
Like
Vita.
And D2.
yeah,
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 Vita.
yeah,
And D2
D2.
is completely just
and Vita.
PS3.
Yeah, like bring those. I mean, I can imagine I could probably guess why they don't. Just due to well, no, because 3 had a Vita port, so that shouldn't be that
Yep.
difficult for them to move. Like if
Mm-hmm.
it was just like the
Yeah.
PS3 version, that might be a pain in the ass for them to do, but it has a Vita port. They could do it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Because I think that's pretty much what they did with 2. That they took the PS Vita PS.
P
Wait,
version.
that was a PSP version then.
Yeah, it was a
And
PSP game at that
probably
point.
with 4 as well, that they just took the Vita version, or maybe they did the PS4 version there. I'm not sure. But probably PS4.
Damn.
But yeah, definitely better, good enough options to port it.
Yeah, I want to see that. Cuz like
Mhm.
I'm always like kind of surprised by like the fact that they have been chugging out Disgaea games and they've somehow managed to keep them mostly fresh. Like to NIS's credit, you don't see a lot of overlap between each game. Not a ton. like some mechanics make it over from each game. I think is Ability still a thing? I haven't picked up the new one yet. I haven't played the new one yet. Like, is Ability still a thing from like Disgaea 3? I know that I know there's a lot of things that get passed over between game to game.
Yeah, it's still a thing though in a different setup. You still have them, but you now have a shop where you buy them and you can change them and all that stuff. But yeah, they're still there.
I don't really know of any other games that I'm like super looking forward to though, because there's not a lot for me. Like I'm usually just picking up the JRPGs and shit. So, you know. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I forgot one I still want to play. Trails to Azure. My bad. Sorry, I forgot. Because the Trails franchises won't let me not play another one of their freaking video games. So here we are. I got that. There's like Trails of Revelry coming out as well. Which, by the way, if you've never attempted to consider playing the Trails games, it's a lot.
Bring time. Bring time.
And there's Legend of Nayuta as well this year. There's 3. Although Nayuta is more of like a ease action RPG, it's different, but it's still made by Falcom.
Yeah. Interesting. Like I'm still chugging through Trails in the Sky on my Steam Deck, and here I am seeing 3 more Trails games come out that somehow managed to still all take place in the same timeline. I'm like, oh my god. Because here's the thing I don't think people realize. The Trails games take place over the span, like all of them, they take place over the span of a handful of years. Some of these games take place within the timeline of like months from each other.
Yeah.
Some of the Trails of Cold Steel, one of them takes place just a couple of months after the events of one of the Crossbell games. Like, just for context, like, these games aren't taking place in a broad scope. They're taking place in a fairly narrow scope of time. So when I see all these games come out and I'm like, oh my goodness, how does anyone keep up with this? And I realized that's because there are some people who've been playing this shit since it came out. No wonder they keep up with it. They just have that kind of time on their hands. I just don't have that kind of time. I'm gonna get through it. I think it's worth it. Honestly though, one thing I do want to see, I don't think I will, because if I recall, Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 wasn't an Xseed thing, right? Because Xseed is the reason why we got 3 and 4 for Cold Steel on Switch, right? Was it Xseed?
No, you have it reversed. 1 and 2 are Xseed, 3 and 4 are NIS America.
Yeah, okay. And that's probably why we're either never going to see the first 2 on first.
I mean, actually, they've released on Switch in Japan. I just don't think they're gonna get picked up for localization ever.
Oh, that's a
like copyright holders. It's all a mess.
Oh goodness, yeah. If you ever have a chance, if you're never like kind of bored with yourself, Matt McMuscles did a fantastic video on the localization troubles of them trying to bring over the second Trails in the Sky game, or trying to localize it for America, and the fucking mess that was for them trying to get that game localized. It went through like multiple...
That short script. That short script.
Yeah, that super duper short script of an RPG. I can't imagine. Maybe I'll see them come out on Switch, because it just seems so lopsided to have 3 and 4 on Switch, but not 1 and 2. But, you know, as Twitter has reminded me, the Switch needs to be replaced, which I guess that kind of dovetails into a fantastic segue for me. When Nintendo does inevitably announce a successor of some sort, or do you think that, like, because Nintendo has a habit of kind of just going their own way with whatever they create, right? They don't always go the way you think they're gonna go. What's the chances that you think Nintendo is just going to just go back to just a traditional console, home console, and it not be?
I mean, honestly, I think the chance is 0%.
0? You're not even willing to gamble on a 1%? 1%. just 1%.
And maybe 1%, but like, I mean, I think about it like this: like Pokemon Company, by the end of Switch's life, will have sold over 100 million units of software on Switch. Um, if Nintendo will
Which
listen to
after that
anybody,
last release, oh boy.
I mean, if Nintendo will listen to anybody, they'll listen to Pokemon Company. And so Pokemon Company needs a handheld. They don't need a handheld, but they like having like a cheaper, I'm pretty sure like the Switch Lite only exists because Pokemon Company wanted it.
Yeah. A Game
So
Boy,
yeah,
like, so to
yeah.
speak. You know what I mean?
So I mean, I think that there's always gonna be like a handheld component. Like I just don't see them dropping it.
You don't see
Yeah.
them switching course and going to like a traditional home console with like a pair of a pair of controllers, taking it back,
Yeah.
taking it back to the Famicom with the super short super short controller cables. I could see Nintendo. I think Nintendo could. I feel like if there's anybody who could like switch it up and get away with it, I feel like it's Nintendo. I feel
And
I feel like they're the
it's
only people that could do it though. I think if anybody else did it, they'd get crucified. But I feel like Nintendo has a track record of just flipping the script and doing their own thing so much that like if they did it, would anyone be surprised? You know what I mean? Like if they announced their next console and I don't know, it's a dual screen handheld or something.
I think at that point Game Freak would just explode.
Yeah.
Because they can clearly not yet handle even developing on the Switch in their time frame. They
Yeah.
won't survive porting their engine or making an engine for another new system again
Do you think
this soon.
so? I assume you also think it's a shut-in that whatever the next consoles will just support Switch games. I just don't see them not. I feel like that would
Yep.
be such a bad move to
Mm-hmm.
drop a successor and it not be able to play the Switch games at all. I could see them doing it. It wouldn't surprise me. I just think that would be a weird move.
Yeah, that's it. It wouldn't surprise me. I think it's very unlikely, extremely unlikely, but it wouldn't surprise me if they did it. They've done weirder things.
Cause like I don't know, man. I know people have been like the Switch needs a successor. And they're right. It's been out now like 7 years. I get where they're coming from. But I also think in a lot of cases for some of the games that don't run well, I don't know how much you can blame the console versus blaming the development for the game. Like that's sort of a mixed bag, right? Cuz like it's both sides. Yeah, the console might be overpowered, but if the person developing underpowered. The console might be underpowered, but if the person developing for it or on it doesn't even try to get it to run well, or just directly ports it over and just says, we're done. Fantastic. Push it out the door, everybody. We're done. We're good. It's taken care of. We can go home now. You're going to run into games that don't run well. I mean, for God's sakes, man, this console runs Doom 2016. I don't think anybody expected the Switch to be able to do that. I think that's... Call it underpowered if you like. It is what it is.
I would say it's unlikely that they're gonna announce anything this year. At the earliest next year, I'd say. Given the news that they're apparently ramping up production of the Switch.
Yeah, I saw that too. What?
Yeah, I mean, Switch in terms of unit sales last year was #1 in the U.S., Japan, Europe. It's still the #1 system. So, like, what's the rush? At least not this year.
Yep.
I mean,
At
sales
the
have
earliest.
declined, but they're still at like #1 level. So, they have time to make sure that whatever the next system is, like the game pipeline is good. They have time to make sure it's as buttoned up as possible.
Yeah, they don't really have a lot. there's not a lot of reason. Like, I've talked about it on the show. 2020, when the pandemic hit, I swear on my life, every Switch in a 20-mile radius was gone. One of my very good friends works at GameStop, and I stopped in there to pick up, I think it was the day Animal Crossing came out, because Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal came out, and he was like, dude, we just sold through all of our Switches. I'm like, what? Yeah, dude, they're all gone. She's like, in a span of like a couple of hours, we sold through all of them. It's like, yeah, like, I don't blame Nintendo. Not to mention, like you said, with the new Breath of the Wild game coming out, they're not gonna cut their own feet from under them, right? That'd be silly. You want to push your new game people have been waiting for, and I would definitely think they wouldn't want to do that, because you don't want to end up with like the Wii U Switch problem when it came to like the first Breath of the Wild, where it's like, oh, it's coming out for Wii U, but it's also going to be on our new console. So flip a coin and guess which one you should buy.
I'm not quite as hyped as others for that game, but I can definitely see that ramping up sales quite a bit when it releases.
Yeah, I think that's gonna sell hotcakes. That's gangbusters.
Oh, definitely.
That's gonna destroy. It's gonna destroy sales numbers. Honestly, I'd be surprised if it doesn't. I can't see a Zelda game. I can't see a new Zelda game that isn't just a remake not doing well.
I mean, after Breath of the Wild selling more than 27 copies by now.
Yeah,
27 million copies. That's poof.
Yeah, I mean, on Switch alone, it has a chance to pass 30 after the next financial update.
I mean, for God's sakes, man, we're talking about Nintendo, the company that still has support for Mario Kart 8. They're still pushing out content for Mario Kart 8. Think about that for a second. Mario Kart 8 is still getting like fresh, crispy content in 2023.
People are still buying it. I mean, the game was #1 on the US eShop from like December to just now, just recently.
Wait, was it really?
Deluxe, 8 Deluxe is the best-selling game for the Switch.
It is, yeah, by far.
What?
As of September last year, 48.41 million. So yeah.
All right. Well,
Apple's definitely gonna get the support.
I wouldn't expect Mario Kart to be the thing that they would push and support. I don't know, because Mario Kart just seems like something that's out for a while, you drop support, whereas Animal Crossing seems like the game that you keep support forever, right? But they dropped that off after a year, so who knows? You know, you can't...
Depends how much did Animal Crossing sell in comparison.
That's a great question. I assumed it did pretty well.
I would assume
I
so,
think it's
but...
I think it's not... I think it'll officially pass 40 during the next financial update in February.
Oh.
I think it's like 38 something, I think.
Jesus. Million? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wikipedia is showing, as of September 22, it reached 40.17 million. Yeah.
No, so it's already past it, yeah.
We're already
so,
we're already there. We've already got there. So, Stealth, this is an opportunity for me to ask you a question I tend to ask people who come on the show. I've asked it to the last couple of guests I've had, and I know you're primarily a Nintendo gamer, so I'm going to need you to take your mind and put it outside of the Nintendo ecosystem for a moment. So, you are playing a JRPG that you really like, okay? You are almost done with it, all right? You decide at some point to check the achievement list. You realize that by virtue of you playing the game, you are now at 98% completion on the achievement list. Do you say, yeah, I'm just going to finish the game and move on? Or do you go, I'm at 98%. Why not?
I I mean, honestly, I really don't care about achievements at all.
All right, fair.
I like games that have a set of achievements in them. You know, I like seeing them get checked off, but I'm not really the person who's gonna 100% those.
Even
Uh,
if you were at like that
Even then, yeah.
98%, it's almost done. You didn't work to get it. You just got there. So now you're just like, nah, I'm good. I'm moving on. I'm a
That's
finish.
basically it. I mean, achievements really don't give
They
me
don't
any kind of
fit.
satisfaction.
Mm.
Well, what? All right. So that's an interesting. So like when you're playing through a game, are you just happy to beat it? Like happy to see the credits? How far do you go
It
necessarily?
depends. It depends on the game. Like, there's some games I'll 100% or I'll try to. There's other games where it's like, okay, this is really annoying, so I'm never gonna do this again. And then there's like other
Mm.
stuff. It just depends on the game. But like, you know, I've never platinumed the game before. You know,
that's
on PSN. Like, I'm just not.
that's just
I'm not driven by the achievement bug like a lot of people are.
oh
What's the last game that you 100%ed?
Uh, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But I
Uh-huh.
mean, even then, like, did I collect every item? Maybe not. But like, I 100%ed it to like the best I could. So like every side quest,
Mhm.
you know,
oh
every class upgraded.
Mhm.
You know, things like that, like the important things. Like I put like over 200 hours into that game. So for everything that I
Yeah,
wanted to do, I did.
that counts.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
now
counts
you
well enough.
brought up
That was
Xenoblade.
last September. So that was like last September. No, that was last July. Came out in July. So
Mhm.
that was like the last game. I think I'm probably missing something, but
You brought up
Oh,
Xenoblade,
recent
yeah.
enough.
which reminds me of the fact that within the last year or so, I played through Xenoblade Chronicles DE, Definitive Edition. Oh my god!
Yeah, it's great.
To look, I don't say this often. I love these characters. I love these characters, all of them. I think the only character I was like even halfway liking was Ricky. Like he's the only character I was halfway liking. But then I played the bonus story Future Connected, and then I liked Ricky even more because Future Connected explains he just adopted one of these kids off the streets. You find out from one of his adopted kids, yeah, Ricky just came and adopted me off the streets. And I was just part of his family after that. And I'm like, all right, I like this character even more. I need to actually sit down and play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and 2. I played DE and never looked back. That game hurt my heart in ways I wasn't expecting. I love it, but God, that game hurts so good, so good. Are there many games that you've picked up and just didn't finish? Just like you got through it and you're just like, this isn't worth it, or like, God, I'm almost done, but I don't even want to waste my time trying. This is just a slog.
Yeah, I mean, I pick up a lot of games that stay in the shrink wrap just because like I just don't have the time for them, and you know they just kind of stay sealed. You know, until maybe I can get to them like years later. Um, you know, I always go to this example. Ease 8. Everyone
Mhm.
loves that game, the one with the island. I just didn't. I didn't really gel with it. So I played like 5 hours of it, and I never went back to it.
Oh,
Um,
oh shit.
you know, there's. Let me see. Well, like I'll give an example like Hades. Um,
Mhm.
which is a roguelike. It's pretty tough when you're first starting out. I basically hit like a plateau where like I couldn't get past this one boss. So like I put the game down for like 3, 4, 5 months. And then I went back to it. And then I finally progressed. But like there are some games where it's like I'll put down, and then I'll pick them back up again, and that was an example of that.
Oh, that makes sense. I know for me at least,
Neat.
the burnout often comes from like smashing your head against the wall. Like you said with Fire Emblem, you were playing on Maddening and you got to that one boss that you just couldn't get by, just absolutely walling you. That's where burnout happens for me. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I can't strategy my way past this, apparently. This boss is turning out to be way too much for me just to brute force my way past. And I think that's where a lot of the burnout happens, especially with, like, when you're talking about 50, 60-hour games, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those, it's actually kind of crazy when you consider just how long these games are, you know what I mean? Like, these developers are expecting us to put 80 hours, 90 hours into these games, and then they also want to release multiple of them a year. Like the time investment they think that we can put into it is actually really kind of ridiculous when you consider, like, what Octopath Traveler 2 comes out, what, the end of the month? End of next month? Is it end of next month?
February, yeah.
End of February, and I'm pretty sure Atelier...
First game took me over 50 hours.
Hmm?
And the first Octopath took me over 50 hours to beat.
Oh, wow.
Although that one, I'll say, I did like the major post-game side quests, but I skipped like a lot of the other side quests. I just didn't find them that fun. And then there's no like quest log.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So it's hard to see like where you are and what you need to do. And it's just I skipped like a lot of those side quests. I don't know if it's gonna be the same case with this one, but like if I did them, like Octopath Traveler 2 seems like a much bigger game than the first game, because not only are there the same like 8 individual character stories, the side quests with the NPCs, but now there's like what they're calling cross pass side quests with like that team up 2 characters for like special stories. So like you have that too. And I'm assuming there's like a mashup for like each combination of characters. And I think it's gonna be like I think it's gonna be like a very big game.
You got through Octopath Traveler in 50 hours?
More than that. It was more, maybe 70, and that was without doing like a lot of the side quests.
You got through it in 70 hours. Like, not to pat you on the back too hard here or anything, but that was a struggle for me. Yeah. It took me so much longer. The fact that you got through it in a breezy 60, 70 hours, that's commendable. I think my file had like 90 on it by the time I like finished all 8 stories. I put so much time into that damn game. Commendable, my friend, commendable. Have you, I'm just curious, have you played any of the Atelier games? Have you touched any of them?
I have. You know, recently within the last couple of years, I was doing a lot of giveaways for Koei Tecmo, for Atelier games. I must have given away at least 50, 60 copies of various Atelier games.
Jesus.
But that, you know, I kind of gained a new appreciation for the series with Ryza. But yeah, I mean, I've been playing them. Like, I really like Atelier. I forget. I always don't know how to pronounce it, but Iris on the PS2. You know, most people don't like that trilogy. But I just like the art. I just like it. I'm not a big fan of the games with the timed, you know, missions and stuff like that. But I mean, the Atelier Ryza games, I feel like are criminally underrated. Like, they're just gorgeous to look at. And they're just fun. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to Atelier Ryza 3.
Honestly, I think this is the first Atelier game where the main character crosses on to 3 games. I think Ryza, the main character is still the main character for 3 games. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, usually like the main characters in the previous games will like cameo in the future games, but yeah, this is, I guess, the case where like the same. I guess maybe since I mean, I don't even think Atelier Iris had that. I think the 3rd game might have been someone different. I can't remember now.
Yeah, there was one other. I forget which one it was. One modern Atelier game where like they had the main character as the main character for its sequel like once before. But Rise is like the first time that you have this character.
The same cast of characters.
Yeah,
for like
that
3 games.
they're
Yeah.
bringing back almost the same cast, and you're following them. Every game takes place a
Yeah.
year later, which is, I mean, I'm gonna buy it just because I want to continue supporting this particular this particular set of characters. Man, I love the first Ryza game. It was fantastic. Wouldn't trade that for the world. Oh goodness.
With Iris 3, it was the character has the same name, but it's not the same character.
I thought so. I haven't. It's been a long time since I played it, but
Yep.
yeah, I guess this is the first one where it's very clearly like the same group going through all 3 games.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Which is
But
nice.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate how Koei Tecmo just automatically localizes them no matter what.
Yeah, now you mention it, we don't really see a lot of issue. We don't really see a lot of like delay from them to just localize these games, right? Like it's almost like clockwork we see in a new Atelier game.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't say why they. I mean, they said why they delayed it, but like a part of me feels like they just didn't want to go head to head with Octopath Traveler 2. You just don't do it.
That's the most likely reason, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, like because you don't want to go head to head with a square.
I mean, for me personally, like I like Atelier. Like it's. There's no way you would get me to play it with Octopath Traveler right
the competition,
the
competition just doesn't stack up right? Because
it's not like I can play both. I would just play more Octopath Traveler.
Right.
Atelier Traveler.
Right. It's not even a choice at that point. It's just you. Would you even buy them both, or would you just buy Octopath at that point? Would you still buy them both if they hypothetically if they both came out?
I would buy them at the same time, but like Ryza would just be on my shelf for who knows how long.
Collecting dust.
Yeah, by then another game might come out. Like there's Final Fantasy. There's Theatrhythm, Curtain Call, or Final Bar Line. I think Curtain Call was the 3DS game.
Yeah.
But like there's Final Bar Line, which like that's gonna take up 100 hours of my life too. So yeah, I mean, there's always a chance where it's like you buy a game and you just shelve it for maybe a long time. So I think it was a good move just to get out of that date. But yeah, I do enjoy the Atelier series. There's over 10 games on Switch and PS4 now. Between all the remakes and re-releases, there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, you are not people are not starved for choice when it comes to what they want to play. That's for sure. Do you often? I know you have quite the presence on Twitter. I follow you. We've had our handful of conversations, usually with me saying, "Man, you got your life put together when it comes to this whole game and shit." And do you oftentimes find yourself being like, "Yeah, this game has news, but I really want to talk about this one. I want to talk about this one more." Or do you just go, yeah, this news is kind of cool, I guess I'll bring this one up? Because I feel like if I was in your shoes, I'd be playing favorite some days. I don't know, I feel like
I mean, there are some like tweets that I know are gonna go viral, like whenever I do like the review roundups, like they always go viral. So I know like if that's that, I'm not gonna tweet something before it. But the truth is, it's like if there's like a really cool like indie RPG that's coming out and no one's talking, like I'll tweet about indie RPGs. So like I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's like I don't. There's some news that happens in the middle of the night. Especially with Japanese games. So it's like, yeah, like I'll skip like if I'm up in the morning and people have already tweeted about it extensively. Like I'll skip it. I can't tweet about everything. I just tweet about what I care about. I try to.
Yeah, that's important, right? Because if you don't care about it, no one else. Why should anyone else fucking care about it, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna tweet about games that like I'll never buy. Like I don't know if I've ever tweeted about like I don't know like Starfield or something.
No, I don't think you have. I don't think you have.
I mean, it's a big game. I'm curious about it. I've been following it, but like I'm not like the passionate one for that game. like there's other people who are way more passionate about it. So it's like I stick to my Nintendo games and JRPGs, and I let other people be passionate about other games.
You stick to that, it just works.
I mean,
it's like other people stick to just shooters and Valorant and Call of Duty and things like that. I've played JRPGs for over 20 years. I played Nintendo games for over 20 years. That's just what I like.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Honestly, I always find those sort of situations interesting when it comes to people like that, where they, like you said, roughly what what things you're gonna put out that are gonna do well and what things probably won't. And I can definitely appreciate the idea of being like, no one's talking about this game right now. Why isn't anybody talking about this?
Yeah, it's like I also really like talking about game sales too. And it feeds a little bit into my real life stuff, but I focus on the Nintendo financial sales. When Xbox releases theirs and when Sony releases theirs, I usually don't tweet about it because there's other people who are big Sony and Xbox fans that focus on that.
Right.
So it's just a matter of knowing what I want to converse with people with, and then that's basically it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Obviously I tweet things that sometimes don't have any audience and no one cares, and that's fine too. Which happens a lot. But yeah, I mean, the whole point of social media is to make it what you want. So that's just kind of how I tweet.
Yeah, that's definitely one perspective on social media. Probably the more positive perspective about social media I've heard in the last couple of months. I'll give you that much. Oh, man. So before we wrap up the show, I want to give you an opportunity to put your foot in your mouth. I think everyone deserves that opportunity. So if you want, you have the opportunity to leave us off with a personal stealth hot take, gaming hot take that is yours. I'm gonna let you have it if you want it. You have the stage to inform people about your own stealth gaming hot take.
I mean, I have a few hot takes. I don't know. I don't even know if it's a hot take at this point. Just I've talked about my general apathy towards Final Fantasy 15. I just don't think it was very fun. And even Final Fantasy 16, I trust the people behind that game in terms of the story and the characters, but the combat isn't really doing much for me. So maybe that's a hot take. I know everyone's very excited, and I'm excited, and I'm gonna buy Final Fantasy 16 day one. It's just it's just not the perfect JRPG for me.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit, as I'm sure you already know, I think Yoshi P is handling the story. He's handling primarily the story for that game, I think, which is one of the big reasons.
And the music is going to be good too.
Yeah,
it's just I think one of the combat people is from Devil May Cry, and that's why the action it's basically just an action game. You only control one character, and you can cycle through I think stat boost or summons or something like that, but you just control the one character, and that's not. It just doesn't excite me. The combat just doesn't excite me.
The way I understood it from the trailers, you essentially switch personas because you're switching between the Eidolons.
Yeah. But so that's fine. So maybe it's a hot take.
Obviously not everyone's cup of tea. Something like that.
Yeah, so maybe it's a hot take, but I'm looking forward to Octopath Traveler 2 more than Final Fantasy 16. Wow. That's just my kind of game.
All right,
that's a hot take.
That's the stealth hot take for the show, everybody. You can take it, you can take it or leave it. As always, this show is available on a variety of podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Apple, and Google. And our show is also available in video format on YouTube at Turn-Based Cynics every single Sunday. Unless I fuck up the audio in an episode, in which case there's no episode that week. But, we don't have to talk about that. It only happened once. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I didn't mess up. I didn't forget to post the episode. The episode just didn't go up that day. I don't have to eat the shoe. It's fine. And since we have our guest here, Stealth, where can people find you if they are so inclined to follow you or you can get to know more about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Stealth40k.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, everybody, I hope you all have a fantastic week of gaming and work and life and being tired and adulthood. All those things all rolled into one. Don't stop. Keep on believing. Keep on gaming. And we will see you all next time.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. Stealth, thank you very much for coming on, my man. It was a treat to have you. Like I said, I'm never going to turn down the opportunity to have another JRPG person on the show. Always.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy it worked. Like with my schedule, it's like I can only record on the weekends. And I like to record in the middle of the